Good evening. I'm Seminole County Sheriff Dennis Lima, and tonight, in a very non-traditional way, we pay respect to our Seminole County heroes. 9 members of our local community will be honored tonight with placing a wreath at a memorial service that looks different than every other memorial service that we've ever done. But knowing as a result of COVID-19 and the cancellation of our annual National Law Enforcement Officers Memorial, which is held in Judiciary Square, and the absence of our state and local memorials, it is always fitting that we fulfill our commitment to pay respect for the courage and sacrifices of those individuals and their families that have given so much. I appreciate you for tuning in, and I appreciate you that every time you see a member of the Seminole County Sheriff's Office, the Longwood Police Department, the Windermere Police Department, or Florida Highway Patrol, you recognize the personal sacrifice of our heroes. Each member of the Seminole County Sheriff's Office wears the Roman numeral number 6, and that is just one small way that we fulfill our commitment to just not remember tonight when we have traditional memorial services, but every day that we put that uniform on. We work daily and are guided by our guardian angels, and we fulfill our commitment that they will never be forgotten and their legacy will carry on forever.
Deputy Sheriff Cleveland Jacobs, end of watch, September 14th, 1922. The Seminole County Sheriff's Office was only 9 years old when our first deputy made the ultimate sacrifice. Deputy Sheriff Cleveland Jacobs was shot and killed while attempting to arrest a man for stealing a pair of pants. Deputy Sheriff Jacobs located the man at his home and went to the front door. As he stood at the front door, the suspect opened fire with a shotgun, striking Deputy Sheriff Jacobs in the chest. Though mortally wounded, Deputy Sheriff Jacobs still managed to fire 2 shots at his assailant. Deputy Sheriff Jacobs was transported to the hospital, where he tragically succumbed to his wounds. The sheriff at the time, Sheriff Charlie Hand, is remembered to have said that he had lost one of his best and bravest deputies. The suspect was arrested, tried, and convicted. He was sentenced to death and later hanged. Moore, end of watch, June 9th, 1975. Deputy Sheriff Moore made the ultimate sacrifice when he succumbed to smoke inhalation and intense heat exposure while rescuing inmates from a fire that broke out in the Seminole County Jail. Deputy Sheriff Moore had successfully rescued several inmates and brought them to safety before heroically re-entering the burning jail his final time in yet another attempt to save other trapped inmates. 11 souls, 10 inmates and Deputy Sheriff Moore, were lost in the fire, which was intentionally set by an inmate. Today's date, May 18th, is especially significant for the Moore family, as today is also Deputy Robert Moore's birthday. Deputy Sheriff George File, end of watch, December 29th, 1977. Deputy Sheriff File had just completed a special detail and was in uniform when he entered the Longwood Village Pharmacy to get a prescription filled. His entry to the business interrupted an armed robbery taking place, and he was mortally wounded by the suspects. One of the suspects was sentenced to death and executed in 2000. 2 other suspects were subsequently murdered, and the 4th suspect was sentenced to prison. Deputy Sheriff File was a former New York City police officer who had retired to Florida and was serving as a reserve deputy sheriff for our agency. Deputy Sheriff Hugh Thomas, end of watch, March 28th, 1989. At 24 years of age, Deputy Sheriff Thomas made the ultimate sacrifice after being shot while responding to a domestic-related prowler call in Geneva. After shooting Deputy Sheriff Thomas, the suspect then committed suicide. He had recently been released from jail and was stalking his girlfriend. Deputy Sheriff Thomas is considered to be a pioneer in neighborhood policing. He was ahead of his time in that he embraced the philosophy of community policing in his day-to-day service, even before the concept had the label we've given it today. Deputy Sheriff Thomas is memorialized in Seminole County through the H.E. Thomas Jr. Parkway, which is named in his honor. Deputy Sheriff Eugene Gregory. End of watch, July 8th, 1998. Deputy Sheriff Gregory made the ultimate sacrifice after being mortally wounded while handling an aggravated assault call involving an armed, mentally ill person. Deputy Sheriff Gregory exemplified the spirit of community policing in his day-to-day service. His passing served as the inspiration for the community and sheriff's office to take a proactive role in mental health intervention and treatment. This inspiration generated positive change that continues to this day. He was affectionately known by the community as Stetson for constantly donning his agency-issued hat. Deputy Sheriff Matt Miller. End of watch, December 26, 2011. A 28-year law enforcement veteran, Deputy Sheriff Matt Miller served for 5 years with the Longwood Police Department before joining the Seminole County Sheriff's Office in 1988. In 1992, he was one of the first deputies assigned to the agency's newly created motor unit, and he would go on to spend much of his career assigned there. On the afternoon of December 26, 2011, Deputy Sheriff Miller was conducting traffic enforcement when a vehicle made a left turn in front of him, colliding with his agency motorcycle and fatally injuring him. Sergeant Karl Strohsal of the Longwood Police Department. End of watch, July 14th, 2007. Sergeant Karl Strohsal was struck and killed by a vehicle on Interstate 4 in Volusia County. Sergeant Strohsal's unmarked vehicle was involved in an accident and became disabled in the center lane after he swerved to avoid a plastic lawn chair intentionally placed in the road. He activated his emergency lights, exited the vehicle, and was standing in front of it when he observed a vehicle approaching at a high speed. As Sergeant Trostle attempted to cross the inside lane to the shoulder on foot, the driver changed lanes at the last moment to avoid striking the patrol car and tragically struck Sergeant Strohsal instead. The 3 teenagers who placed the chair in the roadway were convicted of manslaughter. 2 of them were sentenced to 4 years in prison, and the third was sentenced to 9 years in prison. Sergeant Strohsal served the Longwood Police Department for 18 years and previously served the New York City Police Department for 14 years. Trooper Leroy Bender of the Florida Highway Patrol. End of watch, October 25th, 1947. Trooper Leroy Bender was struck and killed by a hit-and-run driver in Sanford while assisting with removing a vehicle from a ditch on West 1st Street. The vehicle's mirror struck Trooper Bender in the head, causing a fatal injury. The driver later turned himself in and was charged with technical manslaughter. Trooper Bender had served with the Florida Highway Patrol for 2 years and was stationed in Ocala and Sanford. At the time of his death, he was 44 years old. Officer Robert German of the Windermere Police Department and graduate of the Seminole County Law Enforcement Academy. End of watch, March 22nd, 2014. On March 22nd, 2014, the town of Windermere family lost a son, a brother, and a hero when Officer Robert Robbie German was killed in the line of duty. The entire community came together during this tragic time and truly demonstrated why the town of Windermere and Central Florida is such a great place to work, live, and raise a family. Officer German loved being a Windermere police officer, and he was cherished by the residents he served each and every day. The Windermere Police Department Foundation was established in the wake of this tragedy to support, encourage, and benefit the citizens served by the town of Windermere, as well as Central Florida. Officer Robbie German is loved and missed by his family, co-workers, and town residents. Robbie's legacy and commitment to the agency's motto of honor, integrity, and service shall live on through this foundation and those we serve. A rose will now be placed in remembrance of the 146 law enforcement officers killed in the line of duty in 2019, 5 from Florida. There have been over 24,000 law enforcement officers killed in the line of duty since 1791. A rose is also placed in remembrance of the members of the armed forces worldwide that have lost their lives in the protection of our country.
Mika.